Hello, my name's Christopher Franz. I'm the founder of Country Community Honor. I'm here with Anthony Hustedt-Mai. He is running in Indiana's 4th District. Introduce yourself. Tell the people why you're running and what you want to try to do.
All right, so I am Anthony Hustedt-Mai. I am a recently retired Navy veteran, enlisted after 9/11. Was fortunate enough to get picked up for a commissioning program. Got to go to Purdue for my undergrad. Went back out into the fleet, served on a couple more ships. Got to go back to Purdue for grad school. Met my wonderful, beautiful, extremely intelligent wife while we were in grad school, and then went back out to the fleet, retired, and came back home, making Purdue, Lafayette, Indiana, and just Indiana in general home. A bulk of my family, four of us siblings out of a seven, have also made their way here to Lafayette. So, we're really establishing ourselves in the community, getting involved, and really caring about the people and what we could do here. Since retiring, after a little bit of a spinal surgery and corrective maintenance, I've started getting involved with the veterans groups, as well as some of the other groups in the community, like Mental Health America, partnering with them to work on veteran suicide prevention protocols, as well as how to drafting legislation to have the service branches provide the information for transitioning service members to the state Veterans Affairs office, and then disseminate it out to veteran service officers across the state, which seems to be picking up speed already, which makes me happy. I am also currently finishing up my PhD at Purdue. I study and teach counterterrorism. Got a little background experience in it, a whole lot of educational experience. And as I've gotten more and more into the Purdue community, Indiana, Lafayette, I have not liked what I've seen with some of our leadership. A lot of our leadership seems very complacent, tired, just overly focused on what the party line is and not how that impacts the constituents. I mean, I understand political parties, there's an expectation of support and everything there, but your number one priority is your constituents. So if you're putting party over country or party over constituents, that's a problem, right? You're not representing the people, which is what you're hired for. Literally in this case, the title is, congressional representative. And so I'd like to see that change. I met some of the people that were interested in running for this seat, and one of the people that are also challenging the incumbent. There are those of us that start this journey in order to do good, but unfortunately, there's lots of people that just seem interested in doing good for themselves. And I decided to, be the proverbial throw my hat in the ring. So hopefully we have a representative that is willing to do good for the people. And that's what I intend to be.
So, was there just a moment just one specific moment that was just you decided you had to be the one to run? No one else could be the one to represent you. It had to be you.
No, in fact, there were little things that built up to it, and honestly, I don't think I have to be the one. Right, I'm more than happy. I've got my 12 acres of land. I've got my workshop and my barn. We keep bees, and we have got tons of sunflowers for like gardening. We're getting like small scale farm. I do a lot of time. I spend a lot of time volunteering with schools, doing their safety and emergency protocols. I teach counterterrorism at Purdue. I love this. Like, I am very happy in life. And if somebody more capable came along, I would be happy to endorse them. But unfortunately, that's not what I'm seeing. I've seen, lack of awareness of, what's actually going on in our district from our current representative. I've seen a lack of care and a lack of responsiveness. I mean, they're one of the over on the progressive side, like there's a whole movement of where is Jim Baird, because he refuses to meet with constituents. And like, I get you probably don't want to get like ambushed at a town hall or whatever, but you got to talk to your people, right? I mean, you're there to represent the people, whether they voted for you or not. Those are the people that you represent, and you need to know what their concerns are. I started getting more involved, and met some of the people that were thinking about running, and really meeting, one of the other candidates that are running. It's what made me say, well, I don't want you representing me, and I don't want you representing, our community. He might be a nice guy at heart, but he comes off as very self-focused and ambitious on his own career path, and not actually representing the people or carrying what's happening, other than if he can kind of finagle you into voting. And these are the people that are in the system right now. It's like, okay, I need to do something about this. We need better representation. We need a better plan for our future. Right? We can't just keep following blindly whatever is dictated down from the party. Right? We need to feed up. Like, here are our local concerns. Here are how these concerns tie into a bigger national picture, and we should be driving like the party platform, not the party platform going down and dictating what is going to be happening to the voters. Right? That's not democracy. That's not how this works. Right? It's supposed to come from the people up, like we the people. It's kind of right at the beginning of our foundational documents. And so I'd say there's not only was there not just one moment going, I've got to be the guy. I realized very much that I don't have to be the guy, but I very am likely need to be the guy. There's a moral responsibility. If you have the ability to act, you need to act. I enlisted after 9/11 because I felt my country was in peril. I'm engaging in a different type of service out of uniform this time because I think my country is in peril. It's like if you watch a toddler running towards the road, that might not be your toddler. You might not know anything about him or his family or whatever, but you need to go like snatch up that toddler and bring it back to safety, right?
Exactly.
And if you watch that kid run out of the street and get hit by a car, that is a moral culpability that is going to sit on your soul for the rest of your life. I mean, or at least it should sit on your soul. If it doesn't, if you're fine with it, that's a whole nother problem, and you absolutely shouldn't be in politics at that point. But I would love to see somebody else that could champion this, and I would be all for supporting whoever that I think could do the best for our people. But I've looked around and I don't see anybody else, and I don't see anybody else that is willing to step in and do the right thing and actually hold the line on what's right for our people and our nation. So I'll be it.
Great answer. Do you have is there a main focus for your campaign? Like a lot of the people on the left, they're running on solely almost anti-Trump platforms. Some people on the right are running exclusively on either deportations, or the fiscal conservatives are running mostly on the debt. Is there a specific platform or focus you're trying to run on?
So I've got a handful of things that I want to get out, and it's bigger picture than just me. And I know you try to be bipartisan, but I'm going to be a little bit Republican at you for a minute. I worry about what's next for the Republican Party, right? Every political movement runs out of steam. Every single one. Like, every political movement in history has ran out of steam. You accomplish your goals, you meet whatever you're trying to do. Your constituents, your voters, your supporters are no longer incentivized to go out and vote when it's inconvenient for them, to donate their time or their money to the cause. They've achieved what they want, right? And on the flip side of things, as you get further and further, into an opposing, political movement, they're, quote unquote, losing, right? So they're going to be more incentivized. In the Republican Party, there is such a focus on, toe the line, that everybody's looking down at the line and not looking at what comes next. And that's a way that you run your party into the ground, or into a short stop, right? We saw that on the Democratic side. Like, what did the Democrats stand for other than not Trump? It didn't work well, right? They didn't have a platform. They didn't have a focus. So, in addition to running for office, I'm also championing a constitutional Republican movement, right? I think we all can agree that we need kind of a focus and a return to constitutional factors, right? That should always be at play, and we've drifted away from some of that. And not just with Trump, with several past administrations, we've seen a lot of executive orders replacing legislation, right? We make decisions by executive order now, which generally should just be like, hey, here's how to execute these policies or these laws in the executive branch, but they become like policy now. So we're doing policy by executive order, and the legislature's not doing their job. And other than the one big beautiful bill, which again was mostly just handed down to them from the White House, the Congress has not done much at all. And we're getting used to having, rule by executive order rather than rule by law, which also opens up the fact for judges to have a lot more leeway than they're supposed to have, right? Judges are supposed to be bound by, the law. They can have this much wiggle room in there, but executive orders aren't law. So judges can make way more decision on their personal preferences, like politics, your political preferences as a judge should be so constrained that you can't even really like put one partisan way or another. It's just, okay, I'll go a little bit this way, but again, you're bound by the law. But when we're not passing the laws, that's a problem, right? And so we're not having these checks and balance systems. And really, like, if there's an executive order that is, a national policy, it needs to be followed by legislation, period. I mean, like, either going, hey, yep, here we're going to codify this, or, whoa, the legislative branch really doesn't like that, so we're going to, create a law which is going to overturn it. Checks and balances. That how our constitution or government is established. And on the Republican side of things like not looking ahead, like at some point there's going to be a Democrat back in office, right? Back in the White House. It's going to happen. And, whether that's in 4 years, 8 years, 12 years, whatever. And the way things are right now, that, a Democratic president, which probably won't be a moderate Democrat, it'll probably be somebody like AOC, maybe Bernie's if he, is not retired or whatever by that point. And they're going to come in and they're just going to, boom, all these like rule by decree and wipe out everything else that was just done, slam everything over to the far left and destroy everything in the middle. And, our democracy is very strong and resilient, but you can only tacking to the extremes so long. And we're already seeing weakening of our democratic institutions. And at some point, slamming back to the left and slamming back to the right and everything is going to like cause our democratic institutions to fail, which is why a return to focus on constitutionalism matters. And on the Republican side, if we really make sure we're doing legislation after the midterms and we're following executive orders with legislation, right, this reestablishes those norms. It reestablishes the checks and balances that are supposed to happen and provides basically an insurance policy for our party for if there is, a Democratic win in 2028, right? And really, and I know I'm a little biased, but like really, we should all want to see not a giant swing and slam to the left after 2028. I would like to see things get back to, like the 80s and early 90s where you had like cordial and friendly competition. It wasn't visceral like it has become more and more and more since like the mid 90s. We should all want the same thing, right? We all want to do good for America and Americans. The question should be, what's the best way to get to that point? And that's what you debate and run on and all of this, not that those people are evil. They want to destroy America. Those people are fascists. They want to destroy or enslave America or whatever. Like this is not what American democracy is supposed to be. And I want to see us get back to that. I think most of the country wants to see us get back to that, and so that is an overall goal of my candidacy. If I can get into some of the more specific policy details, if you'd like, but I'll let you have some thoughts on the big picture stuff.
But yeah, getting back to normalcy, that's what a lot of people want to do. And you mentioned like the politics of like the 80s or 90s. And when I was growing up, I remember an episode of Futurama. And it was making fun of like the presidents. And it's the two candidates and they're literally clones of each other. And it's, your 3% tax doesn't go far enough. And it's like, I think your 3% tax goes too far. And they're literally arguing over the same exact policy, but does it go too far or should it go further? And it's like, that's what politics used to be. Everyone could agree on more or less the same ideas, the same policies, but how exactly do we achieve those goals? And then nowadays it's just complete divide, just left and right, party lines. Even if the Democrats have a good idea, if the Democrats introduce it, Republicans can't vote for it. And same goes for the Democrats. If the Republicans have a good idea, Democrats won't vote for it because we cannot give the other party credit. And that solves nothing.
No, it doesn't. And one of the things on my party side is like the border security policy at the end, or bill at the end of the Biden administration, right? There was this big, public movement about like, hey, we need to do better with border security. It is far too lax, far too open. Too many people are coming in with us having account of who they are, right? There could be very problematic people coming in with these groups, that are requesting asylum. Got it. So there was a big border spending bill that was put in place, and then it was decided to vote it down in order to keep that being a campaign issue. And it's like, there's enough issues out there. Like, we don't have to, keep a concern going in order for us to gain political momentum, right?
You're like, okay, have to repeat the same things over and over again, like the tax cuts with the big beautiful bill with the no tax on tips expires in 2028. This is going to be something that they're campaigning on again, and it's just, okay, this doesn't solve the issue. You just keep doing temporary Band-Aid fixes and doesn't solve any problems.
Right. And there's so many things that are factors of just short-term representation and just trying to jump from, one election to another that, we don't have a long-term vision, right? It's like, okay, what is America supposed to be? And obviously I have my thoughts, but I think that it's something that we should have a general consensus from the populace, but I think we should all be, champions of democracy, right? The United States should always be out there knowing, hey, if you're doing bad things to other countries, we're going to impede you, right? If you are committing genocide, we're going to come stop you. If you are stripping rights away from your population and instilling, authoritarian regimes, we're going to intervene, right? Whether that's through, just the political methods, diplomacy, sanctions, international institutions. I mean, what have you? That's who we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be this beacon of freedom. And I think more and more as we get caught up in our own little like BS issues that can absolutely be solved, we're missing what we're supposed to be as a nation. Like the entire reason why this country was founded. Like democracy was relatively new. Like you had the ancient Greece, and then you had the United States with a couple little, experiments peppered in between, and that's what it's called, like the Great Experiment. Our nation was seen as an experiment to show that democracy can work. And most of the world followed suit. They saw how great we were. Right? And people like to go, oh, American exceptionalism, and that doesn't exist. And that's wrong. American exceptionalism absolutely existed. And we showed this, like our democratic institutions showed this for the rest of the world, right? All of Western Europe followed suit. Most of countries around the world have followed suit. They saw how exceptional our form of government was, and they all strove for it. And now we're backing off that focus, which is really, one of the biggest things that I consider is what America is, right? We're a beacon of freedom, hope, democracy. We are innovators. We're a bunch of rugged individualism. We care about other people, right? We'll sweep in and give you a hand and pull you up and help you dust off, and then hey, let's move forward. That's who we are. But now it's just like we've lost sight of what America and Americans are, and it's just like, oh, you are evil communist Democrats, or you are evil fascist Republicans. And none of that is true. I'm sure there's a few people that are like, I'd love a fascist group. Oh, I'd love a communist organization, but you got bad apples in every group, but that's not what most of either party is. And that's definitely not what most of America is.
Well, yeah,
and yet
that's what Country Community Honor was founded to do, because again, most of America is like purple, independent. They're a little bit on both sides. They don't agree one way or the other, but it's just become where you have to either agree with everything on the right, or you're not a real Republican, or everything on the left, or you're not a real Democrat. And it's just, okay, if we have advanced so far in the future where we can actually have universal health care, okay, let's work on universal health care then. This shouldn't be like a party issue. This is something we can accomplish. Let's accomplish it. But it turned into a political talking point where one side's arguing for and trying to undo everything that one other side does constantly. Just back and forth every 2 elections. We're gonna undo Medicaid. We're gonna give Medicaid to everybody, and it's just okay.
And everybody agrees, right? Like, Americans should have health care coverage. And rather than working towards that, we're just working on undoing each other's efforts.
Yeah.
And I don't think we'll ever get to that point until we, kind of fix this tension between the two sides. And I use the term two sides loosely because really it's just two extremes that have most of the talking platforms right now.
They're the extremes. They're the ones that have the power and the influence. Like the parties, they're the ones that if you don't agree with them, they can take away your congressional seat. They can do everything they can to campaign against you. You will, if what you said is true and you caught Jim's attention, you're probably going to have to deal with slander, slurs, lies, and defamation if you actually start posing a real threat, because that's the sad reality of how these people campaign.
It's true. And I mean, I'm not afraid of it. I know how I've lived my life. Like I enlisted in the military before, I was able to do anything stupid, and so like, I know my background. I'm not worried about, there's no skeletons in the closet. So like, okay, you can make up stuff. Now prove it. You made these calls. Prove it.
Well,
I'll just call them out on it.
Well, so from my personal experience, I worked on a congressional campaign in 2018 for the incumbent Republican for my area. And, it was basically lie, defame, and slander the other person. And because of how the parties with the connections they formed over the years, this guy, he didn't really have a chance. He couldn't talk to the people, like the newspapers out here. They wouldn't publish his story because the incumbent, the Republicans, they pay us. We're not going to publish a story saying he's saying all these bad things. So it's just none of the media outlets in the area would even give him a platform to try to spread his message, but yet they doubled down and spread the lies that I witnessed them create firsthand.
It's shameful. And, I think eventually everything will come back to you. And, I'm a Christian. I'm very, much believe in the teachings of Christ, and that's the way that we should live. And, if that's the way you want to live on earth, I mean, you're going to be held accountable one way or another, right? Like whether now or later. And so, I won't do that. I will live, my life the way that I think it should be done. If you're doing something bad, I'll call you out on it. But again, your policies, your background, like that should stand for itself. Right? And I know that, wild things in the news catch people's attention and attention gets readers and all of it. But that should be a giant signal that like, oh, I don't have, a good foundation to stand on because I need to go make up something like that this guy is doing. And it's like, all right.
That's the sad reality of our political system. And that's, again, why I created Country Community Honor, because I wanted to try to give the people like the person that was running against the candidate, like the people like you, an actual chance, an actual platform where they can spread their message, where they can be heard, where they are not going to be silenced just because, well, you don't play the party games.
Yeah. And I understand why parties are important. I also understand the challenges that they can create. I understand, you have to have cooperation, right? That's what democracy is. If I want, education reform and you want healthcare reform, right? That's good bounds where we can work together and forward both of our concerns and our policies. If we both want, healthcare reform in different ways. Okay, I think this is the right way. You think this is the right way. You sit down, you talk. I mean, a group is generally going to come up with a better product in the end than just an individual. Right? There are things that and data points that you have that I don't have. And even if I'm like 90% right on like a really great solution, and I think you're pretty much just wrong, right? There's some good stuff in there. I might be able to find 5% to pull from what you're saying, and we got a couple other people in there. It's like, boom, now we have a really good solution for Americans writ large, and not just, well, this is mine. I said this is the way it should be, so I need to protect this at all costs. It's like, it's not about you and your ego, right? Again, it's about your constituents, and then as a federal representative, it's about the nation as a whole.
On your website, one of the things you've mentioned is transparency. You want to keep the nation's promises. You want to build trust. You want to be more transparent. Right now, one of the biggest issues in the news with transparency is the Epstein files. Do you have any thoughts on, if you were in Congress, what you would be pushing for this?
If I had ultimate say on what would be done, there would be, honestly, I don't know why there hasn't already been follow-up on the files and people arrested and detained. And it makes me sick to my stomach to think that there's got to be well-placed people in both parties that were able to influence the Justice Department across multiple administrations. Mm-hmm. And I find that unbelievably troubling. So if I had my say, yeah, there would be a thorough independent review. And maybe that's what we need to do is, assign a special prosecutor to go through, the evidence and all the logs and, okay, they're in the flight logs. Okay, well, where do the flight logs go? Right. I mean, again, I don't know if there's other things that happened on his island other than just horrific acts against children. But my thought is, hey, if you were on a plane to that island, you need to be looked at. It doesn't matter who you are. And I'm sorry, like my party, other party, independent, Canadian, British royalty, whatever, right? Like that's not somebody we should ever support.
Agreed.
And if you root those people out rather than allowing for people to be protected, it makes your group stronger. I mean, it's like law enforcement. I love police officers, very strong advocate for law enforcement in general across the board. But there are bad cops. And, one of the things I've talked to with, a lot of police officers, friends of mine and working with some of the local sheriffs and stuff is, the better it is, the more effective you are at rooting out the bad apples rather than like, oh, I must protect all police officers, right? The more trust there are for the cops, right? So you're not expending, trust and, political capital and sometimes actual capital to protect somebody who doesn't merit, wearing that uniform anyways. And I'm sure it's a lot easier said than done, and nobody's ever said the opposite of anything they're always again. Absolutely. But making that happen in practice is obviously a little bit more challenging.
So if you were in Congress, that you would be willing to hold your own party accountable for things. You'd be willing to call them out. Like, just recently, so far, just this congressional session, we've already had three technically. Two of them have died in office while filed to run for re-election. And I see all of these Republicans and Democrats on both sides. Oh, condolences. They were like an amazing co-worker. We loved them. We supported them. And I'm sitting there. This guy had stage 4 terminal cancer for how long? And he ran for re-election and you didn't tell the public? You hid it from them? What?
Right. And so obviously that's a different factor than the obviously the Epstein stuff.
Yeah.
100%. I don't care who you are, what party you are, what faith, nationality, sexual orientation, like get out, right? Like you have no business. You definitely have no business being a leader or a legislator or making decisions, right? Representing our country and our people. Like, no. And each party like I said, it seems likely that there are guilty members on each side because it has went through multiple administrations. Each party should want to get people like that out of their party.
Oh yeah.
Like God forbid, like I couldn't imagine, like you make friends with colleagues,
Well,
right? Like if there's, sorry, go ahead.
no, I was about to say, have you heard Thomas Massie talk about the $17 million congressional slush fund for the sexual assault?
I haven't paid too much specifics on that, on that specific topic. I've seen it top level, but it's something like, oh, okay, somebody is advocating for it.
Well, no, supposedly Congress has spent $17 million of taxpayer money to pay off sexual assault claims.
Which is absurd. And again, like
elected officials.
No, it should be the exact opposite of that. Like, I mean, I get that false accusations happen, you know, and maybe you don't kick them out first thing, but there needs to be an investigation, and then you need to be removed, and then you're not part of Congress, so Congress shouldn't have to pay out anything for them. Yeah, like no, take it out of their own private resources. Like, are you gonna have to sell your mansion or your beach house? Good,
but
you don't deserve that if you're sexually assaulting people.
But if you call it out, you're gonna lose the party's support. That person's part of the party.
I see, and that's the thing. You call it out, and you have enough people that are willing to take a stand and not be cowards about it. No, those people then become not the party.
Exactly.
And if I get ran out of office because I stood my ground against somebody who was sexually assaulting children or staffers that are vulnerable or whatever, so be it. But I'm not going to compromise those moral principles because I'm worried about my seat. And again, if there's somebody who would do a better job, I would support them. So I'll come home. I would be happy to stay home and work on my, like 12 acres of land and in my 4,000 square foot barn. That's an everything workshop. That's the stuff that I really love doing. I'm not afraid to lose my seat. And, honestly, if somebody else better comes along, I'd be happy to turn it over and give them assistance and, give them like, hey, here's these connections. Here's the things that you need to, look out for. Here are the people that are, actually good people that you can connect with. Here's the people, little shady. Don't, watch your dealings with them because they'll come back around on you. And really that's what it should be anyways. And like, we shouldn't be making a career out of political life. Yeah. Because like you said, there are people dying in office. Like the incumbent here is 80 years old. And, and I appreciate what he's done in his service in uniform and a lot of good stuff that he's done, especially when he was a state rep. But he's not as focused as he needs to be, right? People get tired, people get worn out. And 80 years old, especially when you've lived, a tough and good life, it wears you down. And so, like, we shouldn't be in that situation where we have people dying in office, right? Freak accidents occur, but no, like, how was it, Strom Thurmond or whatever? I don't know. He just seemed like he was brought in on like a stretcher at one point. It's like, how is that even like?
Well,
you shouldn't be able to consent for this.
Wheeled in the wheelchair. She got asked, "How was like your time in the hospital?" What do you mean? I never left. It's just,
it's wild.
But how do you feel are your chances of unseating Jim? Like, he is the incumbent. He's been around for 6 years. He has the party backing, but you said you've been going around the community, talking, connecting with people. Do you feel you have a real chance at unseating him in the primaries?
I understand an incumbent run or challenging incumbent is supposed to be this long shot thing. And like rationally, I know that, but I'm not feeling that. Well, and I've got this weird phenomenon that I almost don't trust, because everybody that I've talked to, and I've been getting out there and I've been talking to a lot of people across the board, some party leadership, community groups, some business leaders, charities, veterans groups. And everybody seems to be not only really receptive of my message and platform, but very much on board and just going, this is needed. This is what we have to have. Oh my God, how do I help? And it's like, it's hard to believe that I'm having like an almost 100% effectiveness with my messaging, like just intuitively that doesn't make sense, but people are so receptive of it. Like, I have to go like, I really have a shot at this. I really just like the challenge is, scalability. It's getting my message out to a large enough, portion of the population and the electorate. And I think as you go larger scale, it'll be a little bit hard to convey the same level of like genuineness behind it. Everybody I meet, they're like, "Oh wow, you really mean this?" I'm like, "I absolutely do." And so I've got a lot of people coming on board the campaign. I've got so many people to go knock on doors when we get to that stage of the campaign. It's fantastic. And I mean, yeah, Jim has name recognition and he has money, but that only goes so far. He also has a lot of liability, on his voting history and his voting history over like the last, 6 to 18 months. And, people can always try to, just subdue you by throwing money after money after money after money. But I don't get subdued. I'm very resilient, very determined, and I'm not going to get worn down. I get energized by going out and talking to people, engaging, with constituents and, other party leadership, and talking with the community and planning to do good things along the way. Like there's so many, like projects that I've been asked to step into along the way, at least advise on. And, if nothing else, I get to be involved in a whole lot of like good for our community. And again, that's just energizing. So the more I do this, the more like energy and passion that I have. And when you really care, I mean, that goes such a long way. I think it's almost impossible to overcome, no matter how much money you have, unless you could, make somebody give up. And I don't give up. So,
well, I was like,
yeah.
I think you actually have a really good chance if people are tired of Jim, if you have a good message, if you're connecting with people, because just looking at the numbers from the 2024 primary, total only 75,000 people turned out to vote. Jim only got 48,000, like 49,000 votes. It's not that many people you need to convince to vote for you, and you can win the primary.
Yeah, and I've probably talked to somewhere around 1,500 people or so, and that's just in the last like month and a half. And there's, a lot of people that are just all in. And once we get things more organized and we got more funding in, so we can expand further and further out, it's going to be hard to compete with that. I was working the Tippecanoe County Republican booth at the county fair last night, and Jim and Bo swung by towards the end of the evening. We talked for a couple minutes, and closed up the booth. We went in to watch the voting and on the sheep, which was super interesting. Like, you don't think like judging show sheep would be that interesting, but like there's a lot more to it. Like it's like this is actually like exciting to watch. I love like farming and agriculture and everything. This is cool. But one of the other guys running for office, he came up to me later. He's like, "Dude, after you put everything away, they set it all back up, took a photo op, and put it all back up." Didn't even work the booth, but like. And so we ran into each other at the food court, and because I was talking to the sheriff's booth and the guys there, and Jim's son Bo was there, which is not running for District 4, but yet all of his literature is out there on the table, even though it's not his district and not his constituents. So clearly he has no plan to run for his daddy's seat. But Bo makes this comment. He's like, "Hey, you'll learn eventually that you gotta pace yourself with these things." And I was like, "Look, man, I was told early on in my career, like probably around my halfway point, I had a commanding officer pull me aside and was like, look, a military career is a marathon, not a sprint. You got to pace yourself." And I was like, "No, I sprinted all the way to the end, and I felt damn good about it, and now I'm going to take this." And I'm going to sprint, and I'm going to do as much good as possible, as quickly as possible. and I'm gonna keep going. So
But from our conversation, it sounds like you're the type of person that should be in Congress compared to what we have now. Someone who's just actually willing to put the people first, willing to put aside their own biases if they have to try and represent the people, and who's willing to actually meet the people and talk to them, unlike Jim, where it sounds like most elected officials, they're there for photo ops. That's it.
yeah, which I mean that'll make you feel special for a minute, but doesn't do you any good. And and if people go to to my website, there's spots where you can contact me, and that goes directly to Anthony at Hustedt-Mai.com, and that goes to me. I'm the only one that has access to that. I don't screen it off to other people. If I start to get hundreds of thousands of things in there, I'll have to figure out a process. But I had somebody ask me yesterday. He's a natural born U.S. citizen, but his wife is naturalized. And Indiana's citizenship laws just went into your voter citizenship laws just went into effect on July 1st, and he had questions about it, and I was like, honestly, I don't know the nuanced details about it. Here's my card. Shoot me an email. I will give you. And I spent this morning researching, all this stuff. Eventually it'll probably be my staffers researching all this stuff, and then okay, cool. Let me look at this and respond back to him like, let me know if you have other problems. Like we'll get this addressed because why else do this?
So we're going on over 40 minutes now. I'm sure we could keep having a great conversation, but let's wrap it up here. Is there anything you would like to say? Any announcements, website, social medias, anything you would want people to follow?
Yeah, so again, if you go to the website, it's Hustedt-Mai.com. I'm guessing there'll be like a little link or whatever, or you can look at my shirt, Hustedt-Mai.com. Hard to spell a lot of times. People will drop the T, but that's the secret source of all my powers, that the silent T. Check out the platform, give me feedback, let me know what you like, what you don't like. I mean, I genuinely mean that. I will take that on board. These are the things that I sat down like, here are my concerns and what I want my representatives to focus on. And I haven't had, I mean, I've had a little bit of, of people like, oh, have you thought about this or thought about this? And it's like, oh, that's actually incorporated into this bullet point. And at some point, I'll finally get around to parsing through my notes where, I've got paragraphs worth of notes where I want to like expand on each point. That'll probably happen, I don't know, maybe during the winter months when there's not as many things to get around. But, whether you are, a member of Indiana's 4th District, or if you're an American living somewhere else and watching this video, I care about what you have to think, or what you think, what you have to say. I'll take it on board. I might not completely agree with it. I might think, there's some missing points, but I'm always happy to engage in like real dialogue. I'll write back to you and say, hey, I think this works except for this, or hey, when you look at these two concerns together, your proposal doesn't work, but we can look at this aspect of it, and we can come up with a lot better idea that fits. I don't have all the answers. I got a lot of answers. I think they're pretty good, but there's so much better you can do when you're working as a team and getting other people's inputs and their point of view and their data points. So check out the website. All the social medias are on there. The more that people follow social media, that's great. That's one of the metrics that people look at. But really, if you see me post something that you don't agree with or you really think is important, let me know. Right? I want this information. I'm never going to be like, well, I'm a congressman, I know all of the things. No, I'm going to rely on like experts and the people. That's where you get your information from. And if not, you're getting it from somebody who has a whole lot of specialized interests and are probably footing the bills for you.
Thank you so much for taking the time today to have a conversation.
Happy to do so.
This will be posted on YouTube. It should be posted on Rumble. Country Community Honor, check us out at ourconstitutionalrepublic.com. If you want to help us try to support more people like Anthony here, if you want us to help us compete against the DNC, the RNC, the multi-billion-dollar propaganda machine that so many people make fun of. If you want to help us compete against this, if you want to support people like Anthony, go check them out. Check out what we do. Thank you so much for listening, anybody, and have a great day.